When you hear the name Lamborghini, what do you think of? I mean, it's got to be this exotic, aggressive, masterpieces engineering, right? A dream car basically sculpted out of carbon fiber.
Yeah, it's that poster you had on your bedroom wall. It's become a total status symbol for the rich and famous, a brand that's now pulling in over $2 billion in revenue because it's just so loud, so fast, and completely, unapologetically extravagant.
But what if I told you this whole legacy, this whole icon, wasn't born in some fancy design studio, but on a farm, and that the guy who started it all was a former prisoner of war who was just fueled by his own mechanical genius and, well, a single, really stinging insult?
To really get the story of the Raging Bull, you have to meet the man who started it all, a guy who was way more interested in engines than he ever was in vineyards.
So, Ferruccio Lamborghini was born to grape farmers. You can imagine, his dad saw the family's future right there in the fields. But Ferruccio? Nah, he was captivated by machines. The story goes that when an old tractor showed up on the farm, he became obsessed, taking it apart, putting it back together, just learning all its secrets. That curiosity, right there, would end up defining his entire life.
So he opens his first workshop, and then boom, World War II breaks out. He gets drafted into the Air Force, but his skills with engines were seen as way too valuable for combat. So instead they sent him to the island of Rhodes to repair military vehicles. Then, when the Allies captured him in 1945, they put him to work fixing their stuff. So this experience, working on all kinds of machinery under insane pressure, it basically became his real-world PhD in engineering.
After the war, Ferruccio came back home to find a country in ruins, and he was about to face a huge personal tragedy. It was right here, from the ashes, that he would build his very first empire.
Italy's economy was an absolute mess. And then, his personal life was too. His wife, Clelia, died giving birth to their first son. Absolutely heartbroken, Ferruccio just poured everything he had into his work. And that intense, grief-filled focus, it would lead him straight to his first major breakthrough.
And the opportunity, it came from a pretty familiar problem. His dad's tractor was broken. Again. While he was fixing it, he was listening to his father complain, and these were problems every farmer in Italy was facing. Tractors were crazy expensive, fuel was just unbearable, and finding parts was a total nightmare. Ferruccio didn't just see a broken machine, he saw a completely broken market.
His solution was just brilliant. He started buying up cheap, surplus military engines. Then he invented this thing called a fuel atomizer, which let the engine start up on gasoline, but then run on much, much cheaper diesel. His own father gambled the entire family farm as collateral for a bank loan, and, just like that, Lamborghini Trattori was born. It wasn't long before he became one of the biggest agricultural manufacturers in the whole country.
So now, Ferruccio is one of the wealthiest men in Italy. He loved his fast cars. But that passion for performance was about to kick off what is probably the most legendary rivalry in the history of cars.
I mean, he owned it all. Jaguars, Maseratis, and of course, Ferraris. His absolute prized possession was a Ferrari 250 GT, but it was also his biggest headache, the clutch. It just kept breaking. After another crazy expensive repair, Ferruccio finally had enough.
So, he takes the Ferrari to his own tractor factory, and what his mechanics found was just astonishing. The clutch in this high-performance Ferrari was identical to one he used in his tractors. The very same part that Ferrari was charging a fortune to replace was a common component he could get for a tiny, tiny fraction of the cost.
Now, as an engineer, Ferruccio went to Enzo Ferrari himself. He wasn't trying to start a fight, he was actually trying to offer a solution to make the clutch better. But the famously arrogant Enzo Ferrari, well, he wasn't interested in feedback from a mere tractor manufacturer. He just dismissed him with that legendary insult, "Stick to making tractors and let me make sports cars."
Oh man, that insult, that changed everything. On the drive home, Ferruccio made a decision. He wasn't just going to fix his Ferrari. He was going to build a better car. Period.
So in 1963, he founded Automobile Lamborghini with one goal: build the perfect car. And his first move? Pure genius. He poached some of the best engineers around, including a few who had just quit working for Ferrari.
He gave his team this completely impossible deadline: build a prototype in just 4 months for the Turin Motor Show. They worked like crazy, but as the show was about to start, they hit a major snag. The engine just wasn't ready. Unfazed, Ferruccio told them to fill the engine bay with bricks to get the weight right and to keep the hood locked no matter what.
And the gamble actually paid off. The car's design was so incredible, nobody even asked to see the engine.
But the true legend, that was still to come. While Ferruccio was focused on his grand tours, his young engineers were secretly working on this radical side project, the 1966 Miura. This car was an absolute revolution. It was the fastest production car in the world, and its mid-engine layout set the standard for pretty much every high-performance car since. It wasn't just a sports car. It was the world's very first supercar.
So Ferruccio hadn't just competed with Ferrari, he had totally surpassed him. But right at the company's peak, the tractor empire that started it all was about to bring everything crashing down.
The first blow came from the tractor business. He had a massive order for 5,000 tractors from Bolivia, and then overnight it was canceled because of a political coup. Ferruccio had already taken out these huge loans to ramp up production. Suddenly, he's left with a warehouse full of unsold tractors and just crippling debt.
And then the 1970s royal crisis hit, and the market for gas-guzzling supercars just collapsed. He was fighting these huge financial battles on two fronts, and a tired Ferruccio sold off his shares in 1974. I guess he figured he'd proven his point to Ferrari. It was time to walk away.
But without its founder, the company just drifted. It went bankrupt in 1978. It was passed around between owners for decades, from French entrepreneurs to Chrysler, then over to an Indonesian group. The raging bull was just lost.
Stability finally showed up in 1998, when Audi, which is part of the Volkswagen Group, took over. They brought deep pockets and this new philosophy. Let's fuse Lamborghini's wild, untamed Italian passion with some disciplined German engineering.
And this new era, it brought unbelievable success. I mean, sure, the Aventador and the Hurricane carried the supercar torch, but the real game changer was the Urus. This super SUV brought in a whole new wave of buyers, and as you can see from this chart, it now accounts for over half of all their sales. It's wild.
So you go from a farmer's son to a prisoner of war to this industrial giant who was scorned by a rival. It's a story that really makes you wonder, what truly forges an icon like this? Is it the relentless pursuit of perfect engineering? Or is it just the stubborn, unbreakable will of one person who absolutely refused to be told what he couldn't do?